Hey guys, welcome back to 90 Feet from Home. I'm your host Ashley, and before we kick things off, I just want to mention a couple changes, or just one major change. Previously, I was posting every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday with pretty much good regularity until 2020 rolled around. But I do find lately I've been a little bit busy with article writing, with book writing, and with my day job. So I am going to be cutting back to 2 days a week so that I can post with regularity every Tuesday and Saturday. So that Thursday video will be removed, and instead of Saturday being dedicated to just doing lingo lessons, there will be periodic lingo lessons, but they will be kind of thrown in every so often, every third or fourth video. So now you can look forward to just a general mix of other content every Saturday instead of just those Saturday lingo lessons. I do still have at least one of those filmed, so that you may see a video or two that still mentions the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday scheduling, but from now on it will just be every Tuesday and Saturday, just for my sanity a little bit. I also wanted to take a second to thank everybody who's been commenting and sending me messages here and on Instagram. I apparently have people watching these videos in Costa Rica, in England, in Russia. I got a Russian comment. I actually had to translate it. So spasiba, Russia, for watching. Thank you so much. And it really does mean the world to me to know that you guys are watching all around the globe, because that is the whole goal of this video series. I want to make baseball more accessible to everyone, and to know that people are watching it where baseball is rarely played and are being able to learn and grow and love the game is exactly why I started doing these. So thank you guys so much for commenting, for letting me know where you're watching from. Comment down below if you're watching from somewhere outside North America. I love finding out where these videos are being watched. It really does just make my entire day. So there you go, guys. New scheduling. I'm probably still gonna try and say Thursday when I do the video outros, because, you know, you get into a habit. But without further ado, I am gonna do a video today that was by request from one of my viewers overseas. So Matthew in England, this one's for you. And I'm actually gonna kind of combine two different ideas into one for you, Matthew, so I hope you don't mind. Matthew wanted to know how you can keep up with your baseball team of choice, especially if you're maybe not from the country, and also those 162 game schedules are rigorous, to say the least. So for those of you guys who aren't regularly writing about a team like I do, how do you keep up? Because heaven knows nobody has time to watch 162 games a year. And for me, who writes about 3 different teams, I obviously cannot keep up with 162 games for each of them every year. So I thought it would be a good video to both tell you how to pick a team, if perhaps you don't know which team is the best one to follow, and also how to follow that team throughout a season. So picking a team for most people who live in the States is fairly easy. A lot of times you'll end up just picking either the team that plays closest to where you live. So say you live in Washington, DC, following the Nationals makes a lot of sense because you can go to those games. The local broadcasts make it fairly easy to catch games from time to time. I'm not going to get into blackout restrictions, which is an absolute nightmare, especially for those of you living in the Los Angeles area. I know. Otherwise, you end up following a team I think that your family has followed for years. So maybe your, mom and dad were from Detroit, and even though you live in Wisconsin, you probably still follow the Tigers instead of the Brewers. So it is a lot easier, I think, if you're living locally to the United States to pick a team, because there are obviously 30 different options located in and around you, and it's either some sort of personal connection to the team or a geographical connection. For those of us like me who live in Canada, you're either going to default to following the Blue Jays because they're the only Canadian team, RIP Expos, or you're going to follow a team that you find yourself having some kind of a personal connection to. Either there's a player that you really like, maybe Hunter Pence. So because you like Hunter Pence, you end up following the Giants. He's back with the Giants now, so this correlation actually makes sense. The trick there, of course, is that teams are not necessarily dedicated to players. So players get traded, players retire, players move on, so you kind of have to decide at that point, do you follow the player or do you follow the team you initially started watching? For me, a lot of people ask me how I got into the Detroit Tigers when I live in Manitoba, which is in the middle of Canada, and for me it was that I had dated somebody who lived in Windsor, and of course Windsor's right by Detroit, so he was a big Detroit Tigers fan, and as a result, when we spent time together, I would watch a ton of Tigers games with him, and so that led me to being really fond of the Tigers, and since then I've been watching them for almost a decade, but I've also picked up sort of personal attachments to teams like the Tampa Bay Rays, and I really liked the Rays because they're an underdog team that nobody seems to take too seriously, and yet they consistently put these really good teams on the field, and I find find myself really attached to the young players and the way that that organization works. And then of course I also write about the Cubs, and for me that connection came in with the 2016 World Series, where I just really like glommed onto that team and really enjoyed watching them end that 108-year drought. And since then I've continued to follow and obviously write about the team, and I do a lot of history writing about that team, so I like to kind of dig up things about their past and learn more about those really lean years for the club. And as a result, I find myself very attached to the years when I wasn't even watching the team. So I'd say if you're living in a foreign country, you can really choose any team that you want. Even if you're in the States or in North America, you're not really sure who to choose, there isn't really a wrong answer. I think a lot of people would say, oh no, not the Yankees, or especially this season, not the Astros, because there are teams that of course have those negative connotations to them. Honestly, I'd say if you're trying to pick a team, if there's a city you particularly like, go ahead and follow that team. I find myself gravitating towards Tampa Bay teams for some reason. I really find myself very fond of them, even though I've spent maybe 3 days total of my life in Tampa Bay. It's just the way it is. So I don't know what to tell you. My attachment to the Rays has sort of extended beyond that to the point where I'm like, XFL, Vipers, sure, why not? But like maybe you visited St. Louis once and you really liked the area, so maybe the Cardinals are a good bet for you. Maybe you just really like the uniform colors of a team. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, there is no wrong reason to pick a team. Just find somebody that you like. Maybe it's the name of the team's logo, the way the hats look. Like, I truly don't think that there's a wrong reason to select a team as long as you pick one. And like I've proven, you can also pick more than one. I think a lot of people tend to have one division that they really support. So for me, I really like the American League. I started out with the Detroit Tigers as my AL team, and then of course I also have the Tampa Bay Rays now. But I also liked the idea of having a National League team so that when it comes down to it at the end of the season, you have a rooting interest in both sides of the playoffs. So I find maybe have one team that's really like your team, and then have a team in the other division that's someone you root for, even if maybe you don't follow them as closely. Really, pick at random if you don't know, and then start to learn more about that club. Like, look at who's on their active 40-man roster. Look at how well they did last season. Maybe check out some video highlights on YouTube. There's lots of great channels that put together highlights for their teams every year. MLB has a great YouTube channel that'll kind of help you pick up maybe some of the stuff you didn't get to see. Whichever team you end up picking, make sure you do know a little bit about them going into the season. I would say know which stadium they play at, know who the primary 25-man roster is, maybe know a couple of the names of the great players of the past. I don't say this to mean you absolutely have to know these things in order to be a fan. Starting out, you'll have no real knowledge of the team. I only suggest this because sometimes those players or those facts will get mentioned throughout a season in a broadcast, and say you decide to become a Twins fan. Knowing who Kirby Puckett is would be advantageous because they may reference him in connection to other new players. Knowing who Harmon Killebrew is would be good to know if you decide to become a Twins fan. Also kind of fun because if you ever visit Minnesota, you can get like Harmon Killebrew root beer, I think it is. So kind of a cool thing there, and it also just helps to have some frame of reference. But yeah, going in and knowing who Max Kepler, who Miguel Sano, who those major players are. I mean, they've got Nelson Cruz and Josh Donaldson this season. The Twins are actually going to be really fun to watch. So not a bad option if you decide to pick a team this year. The main thing I suggest is if you do decide to pick a team, stick with that team. Don't pick a team just because you think they're going to do really well this season, and then if things start to go poorly for them, stop following them the next season. I think one of the really important things about being a fan of a team is learning how to go with those ebbs and flows. So for me, I'm in a very much bad run of seasons for the Detroit Tigers, and it's tough. It's not fun to watch 100 lost seasons or some of the worst baseball seasons in all of baseball history happen in front of you with your team, but it is kind of important to be there in those lean years so that the years where things feel really good and successful are all that more meaningful. For me, it's great because I get to watch the Tampa Bay Rays, who are really good, but then the Detroit Tigers are not so great, and the Cubs are kind of in between right now. So I get the whole spectrum, but it is really vital, I think, to know how to deal with those losing years and not run away and not be, a fair weather fan. I don't believe in bandwagon fans. I think no matter what brings you to a team is a good reason to be watching, but at the same time, I think there are fair weather fans who only stick around when things are good and then go and find somebody else to root for. And if that just makes you a baseball fan in general, that's fine. But you aren't a fan of a team then, and that's okay. Like, maybe you just want to watch winning baseball, and in that case, just check the standings every so often, see who's in the lead, and watch those games. You're more likely to see winners that way. I think following one team is really vital. It lets you get to know the players on that team, connect with the people who are playing that game every day, and I think you learn a lot by watching their interactions with each other in the dugout and by seeing how they respond to tough game positions, and those men sort of become part of what makes that team matter to you. So even as they go on, you can think back and be like, man, I really loved Brandon Inge, or, oh, do you remember that Prince Fielder play where he got the nachos off the fan in like the outfield? I think that if you follow one team, you're more likely to find those moments and really attach to them, and they become part of your memories about baseball and about that team. On that note, let's move on to how you would follow your team throughout the season, especially if you're not able to really watch those games frequently on local broadcast. First and foremost, not sponsored, I suggest an MLB TV subscription. I'm Canadian, obviously, so this has been really vital for me being able to watch my teams. You can get a membership that lets you watch any games, but you can also get one I think that's a reduced cost that allows you to watch just your team, which is kind of a cool way to keep up with things. With that MLB TV membership, if you aren't able to watch the games, you can actually go back and watch a condensed version of the previous day's game after the fact. So if you kind of want to keep up and know how things went for your team, those little mini condensed games are a really good way to do it. This will give you the opportunity to watch full games when you have time, and even when maybe the games aren't airing when it would be, you know, an easy time for you to watch locally, you can watch the games afterwards as well, the whole game. I would just recommend maybe not looking up how it ends. If you want to watch a game at your leisure, MLB TV allows that. You could go back and watch any game from a season after it's happened, and that's a really good way to keep up if you're not able to watch those games in real time. Another thing I really recommend doing is just Googling MLB standings. By doing this, you're able to then make sure you know where your team is within their divisional and within the overall league standings. So you can kind of see how they move up and down in those standings throughout the season. So even if you're not able to watch every game, you can get a sense of where they are in terms of all the other teams in their division. And that helps as you move closer towards the playoffs. I'll put up my video for standings up here so you can get an idea of how to read those. Another great thing is checking box scores the day after. And that's another video I'm going to throw up if they will let me put two links back to back this quickly, because I do have a video on how to read the box score of a game after it happens, and that I will put up here as well. And that gives you a little bit more depth of detail if you'd like to know how a particular game went for your team. ESPN does really good box scores that will let you see clips from the game as well. And if you check those every day, you are able to get a really good sense then of exactly what happened in those games. Another suggestion, slightly biased of course, is to follow team blogs. SB Nation, who I write for, Fansided, and several other groups have team-specific sites, and most of those sites will do recaps. So I know during the season I do recaps every week. Check me out if you want to read those for the Tigers or the Rays. But they are kind of good, fun, insightful ways to get a sense of exactly how a game played out. Sometimes they'll insert clips off of Twitter or general reaction, and I find if you have maybe only 5 or 10 minutes to get a sense of all of the important things that happened in a game the day before, reading those recaps is a really good way to do that. So whenever you decide on which team you want, maybe go to SB Nation and search SB Nation San Francisco Giants, and they'll give you McCovey Chronicles, which is the name of their particular site. And that way you can find a site that will not only give you breaking news on anything happening with your team, but also just fun insights, bits of history, and those recaps. And that is a stellar way to keep up, because I know most of those sites do a really, really good job of making sure those recaps are up within a very short time frame after a game. So that's a really good way to keep up if you can't watch all of them. I know most phones now too will give you a news feed if you have like a left swipe on your screen. I have a Google Pixel and it'll give me a breakdown, and you can choose to follow your team there so that any kind of important news or even those recaps will post on your phone in that news feed on the left-hand screen column. If you decide to follow particular apps on your phone as well, like Bleacher Report, I have Sportsnet on mine, which is Canadian, and a couple other things will push notifications of major news that may be breaking onto your phone, and you can also set it up to tell you exactly what happens in a game right after it ends if you want. So it'll either give you updates on the score as it happens, or you can just have it push a notification to your phone at the end to let you know what the final score of the game was. So that's a really good way to keep up as well. So yeah, nobody expects you to watch all 162 games in a year. It doesn't make you a fake fan if you don't do that, so don't feel pressured by it at all. Like, don't have to watch every game of the season. I do suggest trying to watch the entire entire postseason if you're able to kind of schedule your life around it, because those games are really exciting. But yeah, 162 games a year, nobody thinks you're gonna watch all of them, but there are a lot of really good ways, especially with technology nowadays, to keep up with your team, to know what's happening, to get those major moments that you might have missed in any given game. Follow your team's account on Twitter. That's a really good way to do it too. Some of those Twitter accounts are just stellar. The Rays, I'm super biased, but I think they have an amazing account. The Rockies have a super good Twitter account. They're very like interactive with people online. The Tigers have a great Twitter account for that too. They really do interact with fans a great deal, and there's something really cool about the team account replying to you when you ask them something. So I definitely suggest doing that. And with that in mind, that's how to keep up with your team during the season and how to pick one. So I hope you enjoyed it. Remember to hit that thumbs up if you liked it. Also subscribe while you're down there, and ring the bell if you want to be notified every Tuesday and Saturday when new episodes go live. And of course, you can always follow me on social media, where I'm at 90 Feet From Home on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day. Bye!